Hi, everyone. My name is Aline. I'm 36 years old and I'm married. Here at home, the joy comes from my two children. Gosh, I've been married for 18 years and I've never ever thought about separating from my husband. We got married when I was very young and he's been, until now, the only man in my life. But you know how it is, right? Life loves surprises. And it was a series of small, totally unexpected events that brought me to the incredible stories that I'm about to tell you. But before I start, I want you to check if you're already subscribed to the channel and like the video so that YouTube can always deliver our content to you. Now, let's start the story. It was a Monday like any other. The sun hadn't even fully risen when my day began. Everything seemed normal, but I had no idea that a simple piece of clothing would yield a story to tell. Back then, the fashion was to wear long dresses made of such a light and thin fabric. My older sister, who is always up to date on trends, bought one of these dresses. It was elegant, delicate, and seemed to float on her body. But there was one problem. Her husband didn't like it at all. He looked at the dress and declared, "That's not a dress for a decent woman." He said it was inappropriate and demanded that she get rid of it. My sister was devastated. It wasn't just a dress for her. It was something she liked, something that made her feel beautiful. But with no other choice, she picked up the phone and called me. "Do you want that dress? I can't keep it anymore." I accepted immediately. I've always liked pretty pieces, and from her description, it seemed something understated exactly how I liked it. Plus, the dress was practically new. Since my husband was going to give me a ride to work and my sister lived nearby, I took the opportunity to stop by her house first. When I saw the dress in person, I was enchanted. The color was soft, a tone that suited me. The fabric was light, almost magical, and to the touch it felt like a soft cloud. But there was one detail. My sister was a little bigger than me, so while the dress was tight on her, it was looser on me. So far, no problem. I like looser clothes. The real setback was when I realized that my clothes were almost visible underneath the thin fabric, a detail that made all the difference. Luckily, it wasn't an immediate problem, since I wasn't going to wear the dress at that moment. But at that moment, I looked at the piece and thought, this story is still going to be talked about. I spent some time talking to my sister, taking advantage of the visit to catch up. We talked about everything, laughed, remembered old stories, until, when it was time to leave, the accident happened. My nephew, always running around, came over distracted and, poof, bumped into me. The problem? He was holding a cup of coffee. The hot liquid splashed on my pants, leaving a huge stain and a strong smell of freshly brewed coffee. "Oh no!" I complained, trying to dry it with my hands, but it was too late. My sister, always practical, came up with a quick solution. "Why don't you go home with the dress? Leave the pants here, I'll wash them for you." I hesitated. The dress was pretty, but I hadn't planned on wearing it yet. And, to make matters worse, I remembered that the red underwear kept showing through the thin fabric. But after a few minutes of insistence, I finally gave in. I went to the bedroom, took off the dirty pants, and put on the new dress. I looked at myself in the mirror, and there was the problem. The red piece of clothing drew a lot of attention. It wasn't something discreet. You could notice it from afar. I took a deep breath, analyzed the situation, and made a bold decision. No problem, I thought. The bus ride home was short, about 25 to 30 minutes. Besides, at that time, the bus was usually almost empty. I grabbed my bag with my dirty pants, said goodbye to my sister, and left for the bus stop, still not knowing that that simple choice would change the rest of my day. Luckily, the bus arrived quickly, and as I had predicted, it was practically empty. I sat down calmly, relieved to be able to make the journey in comfort. But the calm didn't last long. Halfway there, I felt the vehicle slow down and then heard a strange sound coming from the engine. The bus stopped completely. The driver sighed, announcing that the bus had broken down and that we would need to get off to wait for the next one. That's when the situation started to get out of my control. The next bus arrived quickly, but it was packed. I tried to back away, wait for another one, but the crowd was already dragging me inside. I had no choice. And it was there, in that cramped space, that my life began to change. Despite loving my husband, I felt alone. Our marriage was no longer the same as before. After so many years together, the flame of passion seemed to have gone out for him. For me, it hadn't. I still felt desire. I still wanted to be touched, desired. But that almost never happened. I was a woman full of desire, with a fire inside me that couldn't find an outlet. And at that moment, in the tightness of that bus, something different started to happen. People kept bumping into me. The dress made me feel more and more intensely. Suddenly, I felt something, a presence right behind me. At first, I thought it was just someone trying to find their balance in the crowd, but I soon realized that it wasn't just that. I glanced discreetly over my shoulder and saw a tall, well-groomed man. He was wearing dress pants and an impeccable white shirt. From the look on his face, he seemed to be a security guard, maybe a doorman. His face was serious, but his eyes, there was something in them. The bus rocked with every curve, and with no room to move away, his presence got closer and closer. The heat from his body passed straight to me, and I felt everything. A wave of heat rose through my body. My heart raced, my legs trembled. I didn't want to be feeling that, but at the same time, I did. It was a mixture of shame and desire. My body reacted in an unexpected way, as if a part of me that had been dormant for years had just awakened. He noticed my lack of reaction. Or maybe he noticed something beyond that. Unhurriedly, he adjusted his posture, subtly moving closer. With each movement of the bus, the contact between us intensified. The thin fabric of the dress seemed to amplify every sensation, every small touch that, under normal circumstances, would go unnoticed. My heart raced. My breathing became heavy. I had never felt anything like this before. My mind was divided. I knew I should react, move away. But something inside me, I didn't want to interrupt that moment. It was as if, for a moment, my loneliness had disappeared. The bus gradually emptied. At each stop, more people got off, and the space around me grew wider. When I realized, he was no longer there. A mixture of relief and frustration took over me. I took a deep breath, trying to reorganize my thoughts. I grabbed my bag, adjusted my dress, and got off at my stop. The day had started like any other, but now, something inside me had changed. I just didn't know exactly what. As I walked home, I noticed some curious looks around me. At first, I didn't understand why, but something told me that something unusual had happened. When I got home and looked at myself in the mirror, everything made sense. My dress, which had accompanied me throughout this entire experience, had marks that revealed more than I imagined. I smiled, remembering everything I had experienced that day. Something inside me had changed. It wasn't just about the dress or what had happened on the bus, but about a new feeling, a different spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. A secret whispered in the wind, but when I opened the door, I felt something different in the air. My husband was home, which was unusual for that time. He usually worked late, and his unexpected presence brought a new wave of nervousness. His gaze was thoughtful, almost as if he could see right through me. He stood up from the couch when he saw me, his usual smile slightly forced. "How was your day?" he asked, but there was a note of caution in his voice that didn't go unnoticed. I responded with a brief account of my coffee with my sister, omitting the events on the bus. He nodded, but his eyes wandered to the dress, and he frowned slightly. "Is it a new dress?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but there was a slight vibration of suspicion in his words. I nodded, explaining that it was a gift from my sister, trying to keep my voice steady. He walked closer, His steps measured and touched the fabric of the dress, as if searching for something. "It feels light," he commented, his touch leaving a trail of electricity against my skin. "But are you okay? You feel a little different." The concern in his voice was genuine, but there was something else too, something I couldn't quite place. Was it suspicion? Or perhaps something deeper, a concern he himself didn't want to admit? At that moment, I realized that the dress was not just a piece of clothing. It had become a symbol of something I didn't yet fully understand. A change within me that now seemed to be reflected in my marriage. My husband's gaze, careful and full of unspoken questions, made my heart sink. What did he know? Or what did he suspect? I decided to change my clothes, feeling that the dress now carried a weight that I wasn't ready to face. In the bedroom, as I changed my clothes, my mind whirled with possibilities. What was my husband really thinking? Could he sense the changes I felt inside? When I came back, he had made tea for both of us. We sat down, and between sips of tea, the silence stretched on, full of unexpressed thoughts. I knew we needed to talk, that there were things that needed to be said. But where to start? How to explain a spark that not even I fully understood? Night was falling outside, and with it, a silent mystery that seemed to envelop our house, our pending conversation, and the dress, now hanging discreetly in the closet, holding stories and secrets that only time would reveal. Do you think my husband knows or suspected something? Sometimes I regret it a little, but at the same time I have wonderful memories. And that was just the first part of this story. Do you want to know what happened next? Comment below. I want part 2. And take the opportunity to watch the next video that is appearing on the screen now. I'm sure you'll love it. See you there. Kisses. Wah.